Manchester City's second legal challenge against Premier League's APT rules set for mid-October trial. Manchester City's ongoing legal tussle with the Premier.
Hi there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein and the Times football reporter Charlotte Dunker. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages for you. We are going to start with that late winner for Manchester City up against Aston Villa at the Etihad. The lateness of that goal, I assume, making a few nervous writers up there having to tweak some copy late on into the night at the Etihad. It could prove a crucial win for Manchester City, getting them closer to the Champions League. For Aston Villa, though, that defeat leaves them 7th and now possibly struggling to make the top 5. David, I'm going to come to you on this. That last gasp winner for Manchester City, where do you think it leaves the race for Champions League football?
Well, it puts them, Dave, in pole position. I think they already were before the match, looking at their fixtures remaining this season. But that's massive, and it's no coincidence that they celebrated with such gusto, not only because it was late and dramatic, but because it carries such ramifications. I think Manchester City are going to be nailed on pretty much now for Champions League qualification, and after a bitterly disappointing season in all competitions by their standards, this was their sole focus, to get back into the Champions League. It's crucial for the rebuild. It is crucial for their finances, for attracting players in the transfer market, which I think will be another big one for them. They've already started the rebuild. On his position, the new contract he signed, but he looks determined to lead this rebuild. As big a night as it is for City, it's a really disappointing one for Aston Villa, whose wretched record at the Etihad continues, and that's a blow to their chances. No shadow of a doubt that it really could set them back in trying to qualify for the Champions League again. Of course, they're still in the mix. But the likes of Chelsea now have a game in hand on them, and they've got some work to do. They play in the FA Cup next, and that will probably be a welcome reprieve. But for Manchester City, this is enormous. Yeah,
Pep Guardiola said in his post-match that they've beaten one of the best teams in Europe tonight, in Aston Villa. Charlotte, do you think the celebrations and the sense of relief that we saw at the end of the game really highlights how key this game was in the race for Champions League football for Manchester City?
Yeah, well, given what Guardiola said this season in terms of the way their campaign has gone, he said that qualifying for the Champions League will be like winning a trophy for them. And that's how he celebrated, wasn't it? Like they had just lifted a trophy and it was a massive step forward for them. I think it's the first time since December that they've been as in that, but it's absolutely massive for them that they qualify for the Champions League. And this was a huge step forward to doing that.
I guess when we're looking ahead to the ramifications of this result, David, you automatically have a think about what might happen in the summer. Now, I guess it's more relevant really for Aston Villa in this situation. If their hopes of qualifying for the Champions League have evaporated tonight, do their chances of signing Marcus Rashford permanently and maybe Marco Asensio permanently also evaporate tonight?
Well, their chances haven't evaporated tonight. They've got some winnable matches coming up, and there will be twists and turns before the season is out. Villa's problem is their last 2 games look really tricky, and so they've got a huge amount of work to do. They will believe that they can still grab that place, but to answer your question, if they don't get there, it will be a real setback from a football and financial perspective. And you know, there's that £40 million option to buy Marcus Rashford, and the way things have been going, I think they were probably and are minded to do that. I thought he was electric at times tonight and gave Manchester City, yet again, who he's got such a good record against, something really to think about, and he's kind of rejuvenated himself. I don't think he has a future at Manchester United, and so Villa would be in pole position to take him. The financial ramifications of missing out on the Champions League will be sharp, and so they'll have to weigh up the cost of whether they can still do it, whether he wants to join them, whether there are clubs who will pay Manchester United more for him, even if Villa don't take it up. There is a lot to be decided on that front, but Rashford is very happy there and Villa are very happy with him. I think it would be interesting to see if any other players depart in order to make way for somebody like Marcus Rashford, because he's clearly being prioritised by Unai Emery. because he's starting ahead of Ollie Watkins, who's a magnificent striker in his own right. And we need to watch his future, because some of the biggest clubs around, pretty much apart from Manchester City, are going to be taking a close look at him. As for Asensio, my understanding is PSG were open to letting him stay for another season when the deal was done, even though there wasn't an option to buy. They would be open to talking about that, or letting this loan continue. So that one would be dealt with in its own right. But I think as much from a football perspective, the trajectory of Villa, the ambition of their ownership, it would be a real blow, but they are not out of it yet.
Absolutely not. And also, Charlotte, I want to just ask you about the match winner tonight in Matheus Nunes. He's had a difficult time at Manchester City. Been told that he's essentially not
forced to try and get a transfer away from there, and then he went to City and wasn't playing. So he's been deployed in that fullback role. There's been games where he's been absolutely terrible. I remember being at the Manchester derby and he was terrorised in that position. But tonight he played really well. He obviously scored the winning goal. He's getting the headlines. He could be the one that helps them seal that vital Champions League qualification. Will definitely push him up the table to get them there anyway. So yeah, a huge night for him as well. But just going back to what you were saying about Villa, I think if they look at their last 4 games that they've got in the Premier League, I think they'll still feel confident, even though it's not in their hands, that they can push into that 5th spot. I mean, you've got Forest, obviously Newcastle in really great form, Chelsea a bit hit and miss, and I know they came back and won the other day. So I think Villa will fancy their chances. I think the last 2 games, like David said, difficult, but they're against Spurs and Manchester United. Who knows, both of those could be involved in the European final and have their attentions elsewhere. So Villa will look at those last 4 games and really fancy, even though they are in 7th, they're only 4 points off 3rd. So I think they will feel that if they play to their strength, they weren't played off the pitch tonight. Thought it was bad goalkeeping from Emi Martinez for City's first goal. And then if they can get to the level that we've seen them consistently deliver since January, maybe I think there's a few more twists and turns to go in that race for 4th and 5th. So I think they'll still fancy their chances of getting in there.
You never know, yes. Plenty of twists and turns still to come in the race for Champions League football. Both those sides, Manchester City and Aston Villa, preparing for FA Cup semi-finals this week as well. We are going to be taking a quick break, but when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning papers, including this in the
Manchester City's ongoing legal tussle with the Premier League is set to intensify as their second challenge
David Ornstein and the Times football reporter Charlotte Dunker. And Charlotte, we're going to come to you on our next story. Matheus Cunha and Manchester United holding talks over a potential move for the Wolves forward. Are Manchester United at the front of the queue for this player?
As far as I know at the minute, I think there's been positive preliminary talks between Manchester United and the player, and he's indicated that if that it was to get that far, that he might be possibly happy playing for Manchester United. But we expect there to be lots of other clubs to be interested in him. He's been Wolves' standout player in what's been another really disappointing season for them. He obviously signed that new contract extension in February, which has a €75 million release clause, which means that Wolverhampton Wanderers are really expecting him to leave this summer. If someone comes and meets that number, they are expecting him to go. I think it is widely expected, especially as he did an interview last month where he said he's ready to take the next step in his career. And what is that next step for him? Ideally, probably it would be a team that's playing in Europe. Manchester United still have the chance to do that, but they would have to win the Europa League. So he's going to have lots of options on the table. He is the sort of player that Ruben Amorim would like to bolster his attacking options. Obviously, Manchester United have only scored 38 goals in the Premier League this season. That's only about 5 more than Ipswich, who look set to go down. So sorting Manchester United's attacking problems is a really big problem for Amorim. It's a big issue for him to address this summer. Cunha can obviously play in that 3-4-2-1 system because that's what he's been playing in Vita Pereira at Wolves. And also that's obviously what Ruben Amorim plays at Manchester United. So he's versatile. He could fit in that those 2 number 10s that they play. Maybe he could play up front. He can play out wide. So there's lots of options for him. But I expect there to be lots of options on the table for him this summer. And I think it might ought to be dependent on whether Manchester United get into Europe or not, because it's going to be a massive rebuilding job. And obviously €75 million is a lot of money for them as well. And the PSR limit for them is strict. Getting into Europe will get them some more money. So it's hardly a done deal, but I think the preliminary talks, as we understand it, have been quite positive.
Manchester United know, David, that Cunha is able to perform at Premier League level. Is that a good thing? But I guess he's also, and they will also be aware that there have been question marks over the player's temperament as well, due to a couple of high-profile incidents. Are those question marks over his temperament fair?
Well, what we saw against Ipswich and
League's APT rules set for mid-October trial. Manchester City's ongoing legal tussle with the Premier League is set to intensify, as their second challenge against the league's associated party transaction, APT, rules is expected to go to trial in mid-October, according to reports from Sky Sports News, SSN. The APT rules were introduced by the Premier League to ensure that all commercial transactions involving clubs and companies related to their owners are conducted at fair market value. The aim is to preserve financial fairness and prevent clubs with wealthier owners from inflating revenues through inflated sponsorship deals with related entities.